pleased to be able to speak to Kun Kiatchai Sophastienphong, the Vice Minister of Finance in Thailand, in a very interesting period in its evolution. And I want to draw from him an aspect of his role as a technocrat in a transitionary government. Thank you very much for speaking to us today, Kun Kiatchai.
Thank you, Emmanuel, for inviting me.
So the first question I have, Kun Kiatchai, is this position that you've taken on for yourself, do you see it as a career position or is it a national service position given where Thailand is today?
Well, thank you, Emmanuel, for inviting me to come for the interview. To answer your question, I would say it's more a national service than a career, because I don't expect to remain longer than 18 months.
And in that 18 months that you have with government, what are some of the most important priorities that you've set for yourself?
It's good you asked me that question. I also have put together some of the things that I would like to do for the government, for the country, within this short time span. One is SME promotion. I feel that the government has been very serious, very earnest about helping SME. But there seems to be a lack of coherent policy. We have, the last count I have, over 30 various government departments, agencies helping the SME sector. And there's a lack of coordination. There's a lack of collaboration. And even the budgetary issue was only put together recently by the Prime Minister. So because of that, I hope to bring some clarity to the whole SME promotion agenda. I see it more as a national agenda as opposed to MOF agenda or the Ministry of Industry agenda. So that would be the first priority that I set myself to. The second priority I set myself to is to see if I could help in any way implement the government's policy of bringing some of the industries with potential to take Thailand out of the middle income trap. The government has identified 5 industries, mainly high-tech industries. I'm going to leave behind a copy of the brochure where you can see clearly what are these industries. But basically, there are, the next generation automobile, the next generation healthcare. We already are a center of healthcare, as you know. People come for treatment, but we want to move to the next stage. We want to change from becoming OEM producer to producing things ourselves under our own brand names. And to do that, we need to get some of these high value-added industry relocate to Thailand. And that's the second priority that I have set myself to.
How do these priorities appear to me to be tactical? How do they fit into the overall priorities of the country at the moment? Because Thailand, like a lot of Asia, is struggling to still be attractive as a foreign direct investment destination. And the political uncertainties can sort of slow down those priorities. A lot of what you seem to be doing appears to be more supply side driven. Or is that correct? Is that a correct understanding? Because do the priorities that you've set yourself require a push from government, require government resources, or is that demand side driven? That is to create an environment that is conducive to the markets functioning normally. So my big question here is really how do your tactical priorities fit into what seems to be the more urgent priorities of the country at the moment?
Well, we are facing major challenges this year with the Chinese economy going through an adjustment period. And some people are even foresee a hard landing in China with the renminbi currency being a lot of volatile, with the stock market in China going through some adjustment period. On top of that, you throw in the low commodity prices,
Yes.
with the price of oil dropping to $30 level. So we start off this year with rather negative factors internationally. Luckily, the government last year set out itself a major agenda to rebalance the economy. What I mentioned to you is part of the rebalancing policy. My job is to help implement these policies. Let me explain to you how this SME promotion and bringing in foreign direct investment in 5 high-tech industries would help rebalance the economy. Until recently, even now, I think to a certain extent, we are dependent on traditional labor-intensive industries. But this government realized that we could no longer compete with our neighboring countries because our labor cost is high. And if we were to move to the next value chain, we have to do something more competitive, something with high value added, something with more innovation, something with more technological advance.
Right.
And that's why what I mentioned fits in with the overall strategy of the government to move away from traditional labor-intensive industry
Right.
into high growth, high value added industries.
Right. And how does that tie in with the fact that ASEAN is supposed to be more open now? You will need to open your country to competition from other ASEAN countries. So how does that factor into your agenda of increasing the value add of the country itself?
In many ways, we already opened up. We have been together as trading partners for the last 10 years or so. We have harmonized tariffs. We have harmonized labor law. The only thing left doing in a big way is financial integration. We still have individual separate financial sectors. We have our own banking sector, which is not integrated with the rest of the ASEAN. So with AEC up and coming, we are going to embrace this last aspect of the common market by allowing qualified ASEAN bankers to open up anywhere. The same Thai banks can open branches in Singapore, in Malaysia, in Brunei, and so on, which until now has not been that easy.
Right.
Second,
Yeah, go on.
the capital market. We don't have a single integrated capital market. Thai companies continue to issue bonds in Thai currency. We don't have Malaysian companies coming to Thailand to issue bonds or to raise equity.
Right.
What we hope to see through capital market opening up is to have bonds issued in different ASEAN currencies,
Right.
to have different companies from different countries in ASEAN issuing bonds anywhere they want.
Yes. That's the
yeah.
intention, but with competition comes distortions, and I think that you're an ex-banker yourself, and a lot of your banking colleagues are still in the banking industry. They may want you to slow down a little bit, or give them a grace period to acclimatize. And in fact, I would even say that it's quite surprising that the Thai banks haven't regionalized as quickly as they could have. There were opportunities in the Indo-China region that they could have gone into the region much faster, but they seem to have taken their time doing that. Is there something that you think needs to be done to prepare the Thai banks and the Thai corporates for this greater liberalization?
One area that I see in terms of preparation is banking consolidation. With the exception of the top 4 major banks, the other Thai or foreign-owned banks are too small to compete in a bigger regional grouping. So I see the next few years some consolidation happening in Thailand with the medium-sized banks merging among themselves to be able to compete. So that would be one I foresee before they move in a big way to other Asian countries.
Do you foresee it, or do you want to encourage it?
We are doing the encouragement. But you know, the Thai way is to do it behind the scene,
Right.
Rather than through forceful merger,
Right.
as I think they did in Malaysia,
Yes.
and to a certain extent in Singapore.
Yes.
But we are
The Thai way of
right,
doing this.
yeah.
Is Thailand, as the regionalization agenda for Thailand, is Thailand closer to the developed ASEAN members like Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, rather than to its immediate neighbors? Is there more that you can achieve with Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar than you can with the rest of Asia, Southeast Asia? How do you see the dynamics between these two types of Southeast Asia that you have?
Well, that's a good question. The one that I have not thought of. So my off the cup answer would be that we see CLMV as a means of enlarging the market for Thai products compared with our Asian neighbors, where we see a lot of cooperation in terms of investment, especially in this high-tech industry that we are talking about. CLMV is just emerging from a closed economy, so it would take some time before their economies reach the maturity, reach the sophistication, before they can be fully integrated. Whereas we see Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia to a certain extent, and Thailand being able to be integrated in the financial sector because we share a lot in common, and we have reached a certain level of financial deepening, whereas many countries in CLMV have not reached that status.
Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos. In the time that you worked at the World Bank, did you see yourself as more of an economist or as a policy implementer?
More as a policy implementer. I started my career working in South Asia, and mainly to restructure state-owned commercial banks in India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and so on.
Right.
And subsequently, my job has been enlarged to cover central bank reform, introducing changes to the way central bank work, and also helping introducing new laws. I forgot to answer the other part of your question about financial integration. Luckily, you have the international standard setting bodies, like BAS on capital adequacy, and then you also have IOSCO on securities market. Since all the 5 countries I mentioned have more or less embraced, both, I don't see difficulty in financial integration. Right. It's just a matter of pace. Singapore is one step ahead of us, but before long, Thailand, Malaysia would, follow suit.
Right.
Yeah.
You're the man to ask this question because you've set yourself this goal of taking Thailand out of the middle income trap. Several Asian countries that were successful in the 1990s have this problem of moving out of that middle income trap. But you're trying to do it when global trade is slowing down. And the countries that got into the middle income did so because of their capabilities in the trade world, as manufacturing countries, as exporting countries. Now that global trade is slowing, do you think that you need to change your thinking a little bit? Is there a domestic market that you think needs to be developed? How are you absorbing the slowdown in China, the slowdown in global trade, the lack of capital flows? How you absorbing that in your policy approach?
I think Thailand has sufficiently large domestic market to have our own industries. We don't really need to trade some of these products that we talk about, unlike some of the neighbors who have gone the same route, but they're much smaller in terms of economy, like Taiwan and Singapore. So they need to do it through the trade arrangement. Whereas Thailand, being fortunate, we have sufficient. For example, in terms of internet penetration, we are probably the number one in Asia. So that alone is sufficient to entice people like the Amazon.com, Google, to relocate their data server center to Thailand. Whereas unless you are internationally active, like Singapore, for example, it may be more difficult if you don't have a large domestic market. Whereas in our case, we have the domestic market, yeah.
But I couldn't tell from the way you describe your policy objective whether you're going to be supply side driven or market driven. Supply side driven means that the government will be pouring in incentives, putting money in people's hands in order to make the shift.
Yeah. You see, supply demand relationship is a dynamic one. Sometimes, in my opinion, you do create demand from starting with the supply side. But you're right that my thinking is more on the supply side. My vision is to see, this high-tech industry move to Thailand, to relocate here. I would like to see something akin to the Silicon Valley in Thailand.
Right.
But then we need not only, tax and other financial incentives. We need other factors. For example, we need to have qualified scientists. We need to have qualified engineers.
Right.
We need to have people who speak English, who can communicate. We need to be able to entice young and promising engineers and thinkers to come over.
Yes, see, because what you've already achieved as a country, you are a major hub for automobile manufacturing, and you're part of the supply chain.
OEM producer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that achieved with the education system that you have, with the pool of talent that you have, and the infrastructure that you put in place. But to move to the next level, you need better English, for example, or international language of some kind. It could even be Chinese, and the workforce needs to be of a higher level. Right. So, can you achieve a lot of that in the 18 months that you're going to set for yourself?
At the top level. Oh, we can, because we have already introduced the talent mobility program, under which some of the top scholars from Thailand who study overseas but who refuse to come back will be encouraged to come back in exchange for good jobs, good career, and good working environment. That's why we want to create an environment where they can work and realize their potential. And that's why they don't come back, because they feel, number one, they can earn more money. Number two, they work in a very challenging environment. Yes. So we have to create that environment. But the lower level would take longer, because the educational system is still not conducive to producing good English-speaking labor force. That would definitely take longer than 2 years. Yeah.
Let me ask now your role in the current government, and the rest of us looking at Thailand, given the fact that the military has set up the government's infrastructure. How do technocrats like yourself see your role in the government structure as it exists right now? And how would you describe your relationship with the political process? And are you comfortable with it? Do you see yourself as being useful in it? Do you see yourself achieving specific goals? Or are you concerned that the work that you're doing might not be sustainable in the future?
Luckily, we enjoy harmony in terms of decision making. There's a clear line of command. The government at the top level is decisive. They have clear vision. They have clear mandate. They know exactly what they want. And we don't suffer from this political bickering, ideological disagreement.
In a democratic process, you seem to have that issue.
Democrat, I find it much easier to work in this environment because I'm given a clear mandate, I'm given a clear target, and I'm given a clear time frame.
Yes, that's very good. But do you then, as a citizen, want to see this as a temporary process, or is that a question you're not asking yourself at the moment?
Temporary, because the Prime Minister already announced to the public and to the international community that a new constitution is being drafted and election will be held. So in 18 months' time, we will have a new government. So that part is clear and has been conveyed to us in no uncertain terms. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Kun Kiatchai.
Yeah, thank you.
It's very good.